Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse Witch, and today we will talk about a very tricky topic because we will talk about spiritual psychosis and my own experiences with it, because I have quite a lot, unfortunately. So, of course, first of all, trigger warning, I will talk about mental health in this video, so if that could be triggering for you, any talk about mental health and psychosis and things like that, then maybe just skip out this video. That's totally fine. You don't have to watch it if it could negatively impact you. Also, I want to, of course, say I am not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a mental health professional in general. So I won't give you any tips in this video. This is not a video supposed to be like, this is how you can spot spiritual psychosis. Because I am not a mental health professional, and I don't want to give you any wrong ideas. So the only thing that I will do in this video is talk about my own experiences with it. This will basically be a little bit of a story time video, probably. So with that, of course, I won't tell you in the comments if you ask. I won't tell you if you have spiritual psychosis or not. I can't do that, and I also don't want to do that because that is not my responsibility. And if you think you could maybe suffer from spiritual psychosis, then please go see a professional. Because the internet is not a place to diagnose that. And it's definitely also not a place where I can help you with it. This being said, this will just be a story time. I hope, even though it will be hard and also awkward to talk about, it's one of the most awful phases of my life that I've ever lived through. And it's also just very awkward and embarrassing at times. So please be respectful in the comments. I would not have to make this video. I don't have to tell the story. But the thing is that I don't see this topic being talked about. And it's extremely important in our community because it is so easy to slip into spiritual psychosis. So I hope that with this video, although it will be very hard and awkward to talk about, that I can get more people to talk about it. Because maybe a lot of people don't even know about it. I just hope that you can maybe learn from the story, learn from my mistakes, so that you don't make the same mistakes. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get awkward. Before I hop into my own story, I want to just quickly read you the definition of what psychosis is, and then basically you can guess what spiritual psychosis is. So, what is psychosis? Psychosis refers to a collection of symptoms that affects the mind where there has been some loss of contact with reality. During an episode of psychosis, a person's thoughts and perceptions are disrupted, and they may have difficulty recognizing what is real and what is not. And spiritual psychosis basically is just normal psychosis. It's just related to spiritual kinds of things. So of course you also lose touch with reality and things like that, but it's embedded in your spirituality basically. And that is where it gets tricky because of course, how do you differentiate between your own experiences that are valid and spiritual psychosis? It's hard. So this is where I will get into my own experiences with it, and this will be fucking awkward. So first of all, let me quickly describe where I was at that point in my life, because I feel like if I describe how my general state was, you will understand better how I slipped into all of this stuff. So I was probably at the lowest point in my life. At that point, I was very depressed. Anxiety ruled my life. I didn't really do anything because I was just so anxious and I just couldn't. So anxiety definitely ruled my life. I had extremely low self-esteem. It was basically non-existent, and I was very reliant on other people's approval and attention. So I basically, at that point in my life, I did everything I could just to get other people's attention and approval. And sometimes I even did everything to get other people's attention and didn't even care if they would approve of the things that I did. So that is where I was in my life. It was a very dark time. That is where we start out the story. I was also at that point in a relationship, but kind of at the end of a relationship, it was kind of falling apart at that point. My partner didn't give me any attention, any love, anything. I was also very new to witchcraft and spirituality in general. I was basically just starting out, so I had zero experience, and this is the important part. Zero experience in witchcraft and spirituality, plus very low self-esteem and a need for attention. Keep that in mind. It's a bad combination. As someone who was very, very new to witchcraft and to spirituality in general, and my partner did not support me at all. He basically said I'm in a cult, and he wasn't supportive at all, let's just say it like that. And I didn't have any friends who practiced magic or who were spiritual even. Everyone was basically agnostic or atheist. So I was of course looking for community, as a lot of people do. I was looking for people who I could hang out with and talk about magic and maybe perform some rituals together. And luckily I also found a group pretty fast. It was basically a very mixed group of people from different backgrounds, different types of magic that they would perform, different traditions they belong to. Yeah, everyone basically did very different kinds of things. There were occultists, chaos magicians, witches, pagans, everything. So it was a very, very mixed group, and there were also very, very great people in that group. For example, I met my best friend in that group, so that was awesome. I'm still in touch with some of the people from that group, so that's amazing. But here's the big but. The big but. I also met a guy in that group. And that guy was a couple of years older than me. He had 20 plus years of experience as a chaos magician. So that was, of course, very cool to me as a newbie witch with zero self-esteem. He also was very, very self-confident. He was so confident in everything that he does. And I've always been a person who kind of admires people who are just self-confident. Even if there's nothing behind it, as long as people are confident in themselves, I find that admirable. So of course, that person kind of emitted some kind of strange charisma. And I got very, very interested in this person. Although now looking back, I'm like, ew, what the fuck was I thinking? So you probably kind of see where this is going. I was a new witch, no experience, no self-esteem, no self-confidence. So I was always looking up to people who had more experience than me, and I always assumed that they were right. Whatever someone would tell me with more experience than me, I would assume that they would be right. I was extremely impressionable. Nowadays, luckily, I'm not anymore, but back then, wow, was I impressionable. I just thought everything that these people with more experience said was correct. And that is not a good place to be in. Friends, please, please, don't just blindly believe everything someone says. Even if they have 20 plus years of experience, that doesn't mean that they are always right. But I got very, very interested in him, and sadly, he got also interested in me, and he basically started giving me everything that I longed for during that time in my life. So of course he gave me lots of attention, he gave me lots of love, he gave me someone just to talk to about my practice. He reassured me in my practice a lot, which I very much needed and wanted at that time. He gave me someone to learn from, because of course I thought 20 plus years of experience, there's someone who I can look up to and who I can learn from. And don't get me wrong, I did learn quite a lot of stuff from him, which was cool, but I also learned a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have learned. So yeah, this initial interest ended up in him very, very heavily love bombing me, which was very successful. Great. We love a good narcissist, gaslighting, love bombing asshole. But yeah, sadly, it did work. And I very quickly started trusting him with basically anything that he said, because of course he was so knowledgeable and he had so much experience, and I definitely shouldn't have just blindly believed everything that he said. And yeah, that is where the story gets interesting, because he ended up telling me that he was otherkin, which, if you have never heard the term, that basically means that he believed that he wasn't human, or at least not entirely human. He believed that on the astral realm he was a dragon, or at least it started out with him saying that he was a dragon. After a couple of months, he ended up telling me that he was actually a dragon king, the most important dragon apart from his parents. So yeah, he started out by just introducing me to the idea of otherkin people. I had never heard of that term before, but of course it was very, very interesting to me, and I didn't even think twice about it being strange. And the big problem came when he started telling me that I was otherkin. He told me that on the astral realm I was an elf. And of course, I told you in the beginning of the story, I was impressionable, I had low self-esteem, and I was in desperate need of attention and reassurance. Everything that he gave me then, by telling me, oh, on the astral realm you are special. You might not feel special as a human, but you are special on the astral realm. So of course I wanted to believe him, because wow, now I'm something different, now I'm cool, now there's something special about me, and someone gives me attention and reassures me and everything. So I just completely blindly believed him. I still can't believe that I just trusted him with that, and I was just like, well, if he says that, it has to be right. Don't do that. Don't believe people. Don't just blindly trust people. So yeah, this is where it gets very, very embarrassing, because he was already, he ended up being very deeply in spiritual psychosis, and not even that. He ended up being, in general, very mentally ill, very mentally ill. If I say that, I mean it. We will get into that later on, where it gets very dark, but yeah, he was very deep in spiritual psychosis, and he basically pulled me into it simply because I was so impressionable, and I just wanted to believe him because that made me special. And that was just very dangerous. And like, also some people around me were like, what the fuck are you talking about? But the problem was, other people also reassured me in that belief that he was a dragon and I was an elf. The problem is basically that other people in my life that were around me ended up also kind of being trapped in this weird story that we all made up, and it developed in this crazy LARPing experience. I don't know how I can explain it in a different way, but in the end, we LARPed a lot of bullshit. And yeah, if not only one person, the person that you're in love with or end up in love with, tells you things like that, but other people reassure you that it's correct, that's a big problem. So I basically had only a few people that were not that close to me that told me, well, this is bullshit. The people that were closer to me basically said, it's all right, and it's correct, and it's true. So that was a big, big problem. And I don't want to blame anyone, because I could have just said this is all bullshit and went off. But no, I decided to believe it. So it's basically my fault and being stupid and impressionable. But we learned from our experiences, right? But so this is where we are. A very toxic, very unhealthy relationship with a narcissistic, love-bombing, gaslighting asshole that I only realized later on, and I still believed him with all of this crazy story that he told me. So this is where we are, a dragon and an elf LARPing their life away. And yeah, this whole situation just got more extreme and more extreme. I was only in a relationship with this dude for 6 months, because after actually like 1 or 2 months of heavy love bombing, he just became extremely toxic. As I said, narcissist, gaslighting, everything like that. That is also why this was the darkest period of my life, because he even ended up threatening me with suicide whenever I wouldn't do what he wanted me to do. That was basically at the end of the relationship, but you see where this is going. Like, it got darker and darker and more extreme. And this whole story that he spun up also got more and more extreme. So while in the beginning, the only thing he said was, oh, I am a dragon on the astral realm, it got more and more extreme, and he kind of pulled me into that and kind of tried to spin me into the story. So I wasn't only an elf on the astral realm anymore. It ended up in, for example, he was a dragon king, and I was we were meant to be on the astral realm, twin flames. We didn't call it that, but it's basically the same thing, toxic relationship, and we are meant to be. He also told me, for example, that my place of power on the astral realm was inside of his dragon kingdom. Strange. So he kind of tied me to him on the astral realm, which of course is very fucked up, because if you have already this very toxic gaslighting relationship and then you bind the spiritual psychosis part into it, this is very extreme and very dark. Something else that he spun into it, he kind of tried to cancel my best friend out of my life by making me believe that they were cursing me, for example, and they were cursing him, and that he even tried to make me believe that my best friend was in love with me, and that is why they were jealous and they were cursing us and things like that. He tried to get rid of my best friend. It's crazy. And he basically manipulated me with this whole astral realm, witchy, spiritual story that he told me. Because by like the middle of our relationship, I didn't really believe his gaslighting anymore. Like I started being more cautious and being like, something's wrong here. But I still, for some reason, I still believed his crazy astral realm stories. And yeah, so you see, this all ended up in a very elaborate story where he basically tried to tie me to him because of spiritual reasons, which is pretty fucked up if that person is already gaslighting you in real life. So this was all very, very fucked up. By the end of our relationship though, he got a little bit more honest with me, and he started telling me that, for example, he was hearing voices. And these voices were telling him all of these things. And these voices ended up also telling him a lot of lies, which I only found out, for example, because these voices also were telling him lies about what I did, like telling him that I was cheating and things like that, or these voices would tell him lies about his family, for example. So I kind of got a little bit suspicious about these weird voices that he was hearing, because, I mean, as an outsider, how am I supposed to know whether this is psychosis or, for example, schizophrenia, or whether it's an actual spiritual experience? This is the tricky part about spiritual psychosis. How do you differentiate between the two? But the thing is that these voices started telling him heavy lies, and they were getting more and more dangerous, actually. So this is where I started being very suspicious, and I was like, this can't be true. Like, this is too crazy. So yeah, in the end, it turns out he was just extremely mentally ill. It was all just a state of extreme spiritual psychosis. And I ended up, of course, breaking up with him after a roughly half a year, which was already far too long of a relationship. I should have broken up with him after a month, after the first time that he started gaslighting me, but it's just not that easy. Everyone who has experience with gaslighting and narcissists knows that. So yeah, but I ended up breaking up with him, and all of this story sent me into one of the darkest periods of my life. Started spiraling, started getting very depressed. It was very, very dark. But that's not the point of the story. But well, the good part of the story is that after our relationship ended, he ended up finally going to therapy. So this is great. And in the end, I also don't even blame him for everything, because he was mentally ill. So he probably didn't choose to be mentally ill. So I can't really blame him for all of this stuff. So there's no real harsh feelings or anything like that. But yeah, this was very fucked up, and it took me quite some time to come to terms with the fact that all of these crazy stories that he told me that I believed at that point weren't true, and that it was all just a story made up by a very mentally ill person in an extreme state of spiritual psychosis. It just took a lot of time to get out of that, and luckily I did end up getting out of that, but it was not fun. Where am I getting at? I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I made. Please don't trust blindly in what other people tell you, and don't blindly trust your own experiences even. He probably also didn't know that he was in a state of spiritual psychosis. Yeah, it's tricky to spot. That is what I'm basically getting at. So please just don't blindly trust people, and always try to think rationally about all of your experiences. I really hope that although this story is very dark and it was not easy to talk about this on the internet to roughly 20,000 people, and it's very fucking awkward and embarrassing because I believed all of this stuff. I really hope that less people will make the same mistakes as I did. I really hope that. Before I close this video though, I still want to say a huge thank you to my Patreons. Thank you so much to Virginie, Joseph, Offendra, Elinora, Noel, David, Christine, Rixie Business, Julius, Valo, Mackenzie, Annalena, Madison, Bast, Yukai, Kirby, Liz, Lisa, Ashley, Erica, Sturfried Stars, Christopher, Glacier, Fabienne, Anna, Laura, Kristen, John, Ivy, Phoenix, Anton, Jenny, Tyler, Els, Maggie, Betty, Misty, Tiffany, Amy, Colette, Tell, Timothy, Coffee, the honorary gossip squirrel, Bjorn, and Ash. Thank you so much. As always, I hope you, I don't know, probably no one really enjoyed this video, but I really hope it helped someone and it made you learn something about spiritual psychosis. I don't know. At least I hope that you're more aware of this problem and this topic now. If you did like it for some reason, then of course subscribe and give a thumbs up and ring the bell if you want to be notified whenever I post new videos. Of course, you can check out all of my other socials. They're all also linked in the video description, as well as my shop for sustainably and ethically sourced witchcraft and paganism tools. And if you want to support me, then check out my Patreon. I'm currently not posting anything there apart from early access, but I still host my Discord community, for example. So if you want to still support me, you can. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.